physical education specialist with Los Angeles Unified, and he really is going to illuminate the connection between academic performance, general well-being, mental, social, emotional well-being, and our level of physical activity. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart because I believe in it 100% for myself and for your children. So, Mr. Fenwick, we're very pleased to have you, and thank you for being generous enough to come for both the morning session and an evening session.
Thank you. Yeah, very good introduction. You got a lot of the points right. I'm impressed. I have some handouts over here. I'm the advisor for the whole district, so I oversee elementary, middle school, and high school. So it's near and dear to my heart of what I do for the kids, and I hope to portray a lot of that for you. The reading materials are good. There's one article that I brought that's the Institute of Medicine that came out. There's a lot of research coming out in the last 8 years, tons of research about movement and academic performance, health, and mood and behavior. So we're going to go through all of those. The human body is designed to move. It's designed to move. We evolved by moving, and when we moved, chemicals are released in the brain that cause the brain to do things to enhance learning. The critical age is those first 10 years are the critical age for kids to learn to move. And I'm going to use that word a lot, learn to move. The kids that don't move were surveyed in a national survey. Well, all kids were surveyed, and we found out that the kids that were not movers thought the kids that moved were just born that way. They didn't realize you could actually learn skills to be a mover. Most kids that don't move have not learned the skills. We call it the competency motivational theory, is that if I'm not competent at something, I'm not going to do it. How many are dancers here? How many like to dance? Okay. How many of your husbands love to dance? Okay, got a couple. That's usually the trend, all right? Because the men don't usually get to dance when they're younger. They're playing sports, all right? My mother was a dancer and a gymnast, so I learned dance at a very early age. 5 years old, I learned to dance, so I learned to enjoy it. So I enjoy dancing and still continue to dance. And my wife likes to dance, so it's fun. It's a good social thing. But it's because I learned those and I was confident at it that I felt good. If you think about it, if you don't know how to throw and catch or strike a ball, you're not going to go play baseball or kickball. Because when you go out there, you're crummy. And all the kids get on you, yell at you, like kids do. And so it's a negative reinforcing that I'm not a good mover, so the kids move away from moving. The experts agree that exercise prevents obesity, type 2 diabetes, a lot of these things, heart disease, osteoporosis, cancer, depression, and absenteeism. Most of you already know these things, all right? It increases learning, and we're going to show you it is the most important thing to enhance learning in the brain. Number one, it doesn't mean you can't learn if you don't move, but if you want to prepare your brain to learn the best, you want the kids to move. We're going to show you the research. BDNF, anybody heard of that acronym? All right, Brain-Derived Neurotrophic Factor. What they found in the brain is these chemicals, about 10 of them, that are released when we move that enhance the learning. Brain-derived neurotrophic is called the miracle grow of the brain. When it's released, and all you have to do is Google it, all right? So write in your notes for your homework to Google that for your own good, because it has to do with emotional well-being, peace of mind, stress reduction, all the things, and learning. Exercise improves attention, memory, math, reading, and behavior. So we're going to talk about all those and show some stuff. Dr. Rady from Harvard Medical School of Psychiatry did a study actually at one of our schools in East LA, where they actually instigated a movement program in the school, and over just a month's time got increases on 5 out of emphasize 6 of the things that they were looking at in attention, reading, concentration, behavior. Behavior was huge. So mood regulation, self-esteem, if kids are moving competently, that it improves their self-esteem because that is a big thing for kids. The kids that are movers create attention. Kids like to be like them. Impulse control, they're doing a lot of stuff with impulse control. Deals with behavior, food, all of those things. When we exercise, it controls that switch. It is that impulse control. They're doing now with drug addicts in implementing, instead of drugs, they're going to get them to control their impulses when they do exercise. So when they get that impulse to craving for a drug, they turn to an exercise, like jumping rope was one of the studies, and they jump rope, and it calms that effect, takes them away from it, and does a positive thing. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm curious about the Harvard study in East LA. Like, what was the program? How much exercise were they doing each day?
Not, the thing that they specifically looked at was movement in the classroom, but it wasn't just in the classroom. What they did is they worked with Microsoft that creates the Kinect, where you move your body and it moves the stuff on the screen, and they had a math program where you have to move and touch and do that, and then exercise programs that are fun games that kids were doing. They could do it before school, in the classroom, that was used as a reward for time, but not really a reward because they didn't want the same kids getting it over and over. So it kind of started as a reward. The kids thought of it as a reward, but it really wasn't. So kids that were the worst behaved the best during that month. Huge improvements, because they thought that if they behaved, they got to go play. But really, it was on a regular basis. And so they got to play during class, lunch, nutrition, and after school. And so it increased their attendance, it increased the behavior, and it actually increased their attention, memory, many things that deal with learning.
Was it taken away in the case of bad behavior?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
But I'm going to show you even a better study that was over a longer period of time. Let me go back. This stress. Combats the toxic effects of stress hormones. The kids, we know, stressed. Not so much in this area, but your kids are stressed with things, just the daily living, achieving. This is a pretty high achieving school, but in the lower socioeconomic areas, stress is much higher, the violence on the streets is much higher, and so this is huge in combating the toxic effects. You guys have stress in your lives, right? And those chemicals that are released when we're stressed, like cortisol and things like that, eat at our cells and deteriorate. Okay? So when we exercise, it gets rid of those hormones. So it calms that effect. And it teaches the body how to do it. Combats depression, we're going to show that. Neuroarousal, improves behavior, memory, attention, better encodes the information, so we'll show some of that. And how it does it, it makes those chemicals, there's about 10, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, vascular growth factor, all those factors make those wires in the brain start to grow. And it makes them easier to connect and find each other. The secret is the hippocampus with the exercise. The hippocampus is the center for learning. It's like the CPU of the brain. And if we can increase the cells in there, which exercise does, then the computations go greater. One study was done in math where the kids had no new math instruction. All they did is exercise, and their math scores went up. Because their ability to do more problems in a shorter amount of time improved because the hippocampus had now more pathways to it. So just that exercise alone enhances the brain to learn in the hippocampus and increases blood flow. The best exercise is aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise has the best stimulant for the brain to get those chemicals going. Okay? How many people do aerobic exercise? Okay. Very good. Very good. And then if you couple that with complex motor tasks. Complex motor tasks, running is not very complex, right? It is, but but it's on a scale of 1 to 10, it's somewhere just above 5, right? 6, 7. Complex would be running and using an implement. So soccer gets a little bit more, but if you do tennis, that's the highest complex motor task, because now you're running, the opponent's running, there's a ball that you have to keep track of, and you have an implement that's sticking out from your arm that's long. All right, so that's very complex motor task. Hockey is a very complex motor task. So that's what I wanted you to understand. These were the chemicals that I grew up knowing. I went through LAUSD, graduate, and my middle school health teacher told me, told the class that if you drank alcohol, it killed brain cells. But you have so many brain cells, you could lose a few at a time. But if you overdrank, then you would kill lots of them, and it would deter your mental ability. Okay? Yes?
I don't want to challenge what you just said or anything like that, but
Go ahead and challenge it's wrong. I'm saying it was wrong.
no, I went to Cal State Northridge and I have a BA in psychology, and one thing that stood out was a lecture which the professor said brain cells do not regenerate. So you don't
I
want
went
to
to
do.
Cal State Northridge too and got the same lecture. Start out with, but they do.
It was Bernice something or other. She said that you cannot do anything to lose a brain cell because it will not come back.
Yeah, that's all wrong.
Really?
Yes. That's what I'm saying is I learned things in college that at the time that was the best, that was the same lecture I got, that your brain cells that were, I went through Cal State Northridge and they have a huge adaptive PE, so a lot of head traumas and stuff that we used to work with, and that was what we thought. But now they know there's neurogenesis. Neurogenesis is a regenerating of cells in the brain and rerouting of neurons. But what we were talking about is just a norepinephrine is what gets you up. The dopamine is the pleasure, reward. It kind of brings you down. And the serotonin balances it, keeps it all balanced. And that's what we want to be, is balanced. So the world has stopped moving. The world has stopped moving. Children today are the first children, they're estimating, will not live to the same lifespan as their parents because of the diseases of lack of movement. We used to be in the top 4, always in the TIMSS, Test for International Math and Science, that all the nations do. We are now 15th, and Dr. Rady thinks it's because we have stopped moving and children have stopped moving. So we've dropped just because of that movement. This is the obesity rate. You can see at the bottom the colors. 7 colors. The real dark red is over 30% of that state's population is obese or overweight. Okay? And white is notated when they started. They actually started in 1985. So we're going to I want you to get the feel of how this obesity epidemic has grown. And most of it, the estimate is that kids are moving 14% less than they were 20 years ago. And they're eating 4% more calories. Not that many more calories than when we were young, but they're moving so much less. And you couple that together, you get a huge increase of obesity.
Why are they moving less?
We're going to go into that. All right? Remember that question. All right, so 1997, we had to bring in the next color. We keep growing. 2001 brought in the next color, and you can see the states that they're in. Most of the southern states, where it's warm, people don't move as much, and the food is not the healthiest. We're growing redder and redder as a nation, which Hillary Clinton thinks is part of our national security, which many people before her that said the same thing. So it's an inactivity cycle, right? Starting with the young children and adolescents, 30% of the children are obese right now, all right? Those kids miss 2 days on average of school, which means less money for the school and less learning that goes on. They have lower test scores, and the costs of healthcare go up as we get older. 1 week per year extra in sick days, so the loss of productivity. All these are costs. And 5.3 premature deaths due to inactivity. Physical activity, lifetime benefits, 1/10 as likely to be obese of the kids that move. At least an hour a day. The more you move, the better. 40% higher test scores. Less likely to smoke or become pregnant, 15% more likely to go to college, saves the money, reduces the risk of heart disease and osteoporosis, all of those things. We have kids now with osteoporosis, 10 and 12-year-olds, because they aren't moving. The way the bone structure works is that they have to have impact exercise before the age of puberty, enough of it, because the impact of the long bones sends the brain to, say, collect the calcium and make the bone stronger. If we don't get the impact exercise, the bones don't create the calcium receptors, and there's nothing we can do later in life. They did about 21,000 nurses that they looked at later in life and saw there were two groups. One, they all had osteoporosis, but one, they were able to increase their bone density, and one, there was nothing they could do. Amount of Oniva they gave them, all the exercise, nothing they could do, and they realized that it was because they were latchkey. Most of them were latchkey, where they did not move. They went home to their assignments, and they didn't get out and do exercise. 1 in 2 Latino children, if nothing changes, are going to have type 2 diabetes. We were designed to move. We used to move 8 to 16 miles a day just to hunt and gather enough food to survive. That's a lot of aerobic activity every day. Okay? As we moved, the brain evolved to be this brain that worked better when we moved. So as we moved, those chemicals are released. I could learn where the food was, how I found the food, where the big bad animals were that were trying to kill me, how to get away from them, or how to kill the animals that I could not catch. And they used to follow big game cats long distances, miles and miles and miles, and just through endurance we would wear them out, and then we could kill the animal and eat for a lot of people. So we were designed to move. Those individuals who could outrun and outclimb their peers survived, so that brain survived that was benefited by movement. Created the tools because we were so smart. Now we've got the computers, the Nintendos, the iPhones, and we're all sitting again. Well, you guys are sitting right now, but you're different. You're more likely to move, right? See the benefits of it. But the children are moving less, and so it's important that we make sure they continue to move. Along the way, we created, think about it, if we wanted to survive, we had to have this gene that would store any extra calories, because we didn't have refrigerators, we didn't have Domino's pizza to deliver, we didn't have cupboards and storage, and everything we ate was day to day. Okay? So this gene now has become a detriment. So now any extra calories, it's very good at saving for us for later, because we never knew when our next meal was coming. They see where a lot of this research on the brain came from was with Alzheimer's patients. Again, they saw two groups that they could maintain their cognitive function, and the group, no matter what, kept declining. And the declining group were all non-movers. The ones that kept their cognitive functioning were all movers. They played tennis, they walked, they did aerobics, they danced, all of those things. Stanford's doing a big study on Alzheimer's, and the same thing, where they're seeing in those Alzheimer's patients, they see plaque buildup that breaks those neural pathways and inhibits them. In children, they see the same thing now. the obese. Here's a dendrite. After 1 hour of exercise, in the top right-hand corner, you can start seeing nodules start to grow. That's the beginning of a neural pathway that's creating that neurogenesis we're talking about. And the bottom corner, you can see that's continued growth. What that means is it's just starting to grow, and it's looking for things to attach to, and that's learning. That's the basis of learning. So as we move, those dendrites are going, okay, we're moving, we're looking for food, we're looking for shelter and safety. We better remember that stuff. So let's put these neural pathways out there and try and attach them to things. So that's when we want to teach them new things, what we call incompatible tasks. These are children's brains, 9 and 10-year-olds. Right on the far right is a low-fit child. All right, 1 and 2 on the Fitnessgram assessment. Anybody have 5th grade students here? Okay, they were doing the Fitnessgram. It tells them their fitness levels. They do 6 assessments. The far right is 2 or less fitness assessments. On the right, these are kids that are 5 and 6 assessments they pass of the fitness. The red means your brain is alert, ready to learn, lots of electricity. The blue is sleeping, kind of like you probably are right now, all right? Because you've been sitting for at least 18 minutes, and that's the key time. 18 minutes longer, your brain starts to get that blue function over there, okay? Because you're safe. I'm not here to beat you up. I'm not here to eat you, all right? And so you're safe, you get comfortable, and your body starts to relax, all right? It's defenses. Okay? It doesn't have to be alert in learning. Easy conditions are tasks that you already know how to do, all right? You already know the math problems. Your brain doesn't have to work real hard. It just computes it. It doesn't have to spend a lot of energy. The bottom are hard conditions or incompatible tasks. That's asking you to do something new. Learn a new skill, learn a new math problem. Now the fit brain lights up. It's ready to learn. The unfit brain does not. Not much more difference than if it was sleeping. Okay, and that's just fitness levels. So BDNF, that's the miracle grow for the brain, right? Translates activity in the synaptic areas, right? Combats depression. The World of Brain Research was a big project done by the White House. It linked academic performance, behavior, absenteeism, lower GPA, and fewer years of school with kids with higher obesity. And that higher obesity is because they are not moving. Here's a California study. We were the first state to do this in 2001. A friend of mine, Dr. Betty Hennessy from the LA County Office of Education, actually did this study and correlated, said we're starting to hear this research, so let's look at the fitness levels and compare it to, at that time it was the SAT-9 test. And the red is the math scores, the kids that score higher in math, and the blue is the reading scores, the English language arts. The far right is the kids that passed 6 of 6 on the Fitnessgram assessment. The far left is 1 passing. You can see the correlation in the 5th grade in the top left-hand corner, 7th grade and 9th grade. Every one of them correlated. The higher the fitness levels, the higher the math and reading scores. So they said, let's do it. A couple years, and they individually took all the students and did the same thing, and they got the same correlation on the CSTs. All right.
Can you repeat that? I'm not sure I'm clear on what. So the higher level of exercise,
Let me go back.
the higher the score?
All right, so 6, see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Those are the number of fitness standards achieved.
Gotcha.
And those standards are set by a bunch of scientists that look at protection from disease. It's not a real high standard.
Okay, so
Right.
you overlaid, if they met the 6 standards,
Yes.
they
And what
scored
scores
much higher.
did they get on their math, and what scores did they get in their reading?
Gotcha.
Okay. It's over 1 million students. This is a a study we did by the California Endowment over 5 years, where we took an elementary school, Norwood Elementary School. It's right by USC. 1.7% of their kids were healthy in the healthy fitness zones. Very unhealthy, very low socioeconomic area, very high crime. They were a PI 5++ school. You know what that means? Program improvement. That means they didn't make their academic growth for over 7 years in a row. Okay? So they were very low performing. Their scores over here on the left in 2006 was 674, LAUSD 658, and the average in California is 720. And what we did is they were not doing physical education. We took a PE teacher and put them in the school, an elementary physical education teacher. So a credentialed physical education came to the school every day and took kids out. So they mandated their 200 minutes of physical education. And the principal went along with it and forced the teachers, if they didn't go out, she would write them up. That's how serious this study was taken. And so the teachers, most of them bought into it, some reluctantly at the beginning. And over the first year, they improved their scores in academics to 691. And their fitness scores started to go up. So the second in 2007. So they took time away from academics and their scores went up, right? So the teachers started saying, okay, this works. Now, the second year, the teacher only came twice a week, because what we were doing is transitioning to the classroom teacher to take over this role, right? And so the second year, their scores went up 1, kind of plateaued. And in the third year, we got another grant called the P-TIP teacher grant, where we were able to bring the teacher back. Okay? And their scores went up tremendously because you had a classroom teacher. Now that teacher couldn't see, that PE teacher couldn't see the class every day for their PE. So the classroom teachers would take up the rest of the time. But they had learned how to do that. They learned the skills and knowledge to be able to teach physical education. So they got out of PI status, which meant they meant all their subgroups, their special ed, all of them improved their academic achievement. To a 739, which was the highest score of the elementary schools in their local district at that time. This is their fitness levels just in 1 year from fall to spring, to see how that impact in just 1 year can affect the fitness of the kids. These are their academic achievement and fitness levels in CSTs, math, reading, and the math by grade. So all of those kids, the more fit is the purple, and the tannish color is unfit. Here's a school. Everybody know where Overland is?
Yep.
Okay, one of your competitors. Right? They were filed. A Williams complaint was filed. You know what a Williams complaint is? Okay. Uniform complaint. Do you know what that is? It's where if your school is not providing something that's legally it's supposed to be, like textbooks, teachers, or facilities, we call it textbooks, teachers, and toilet paper. If they don't provide those things, then and your equity is not the same as everybody else, then you can file a Williams complaint. So parents got together and filed 28 in our district saying they were not teaching physical education. So Overland was one of them. The parents got together and said, hey, because we don't have a credentialed teacher, this comes under the Williams complaint, that you are not teaching physical education. They had a person that the parents paid to come and do physical activity. The difference of physical activity is physical activity. There's not a lot of learning and deliberate instruction going on. Okay? So,
Just a second.
yes,
Yeah.
most of the schools were doing that, right? Most of the schools are doing that. We put things into place to start things to change so that those classroom teachers do go out. Now, the Williams complaint was filed in 2008. In 2009, they had a program where they did physical activity to the group in the morning. All the kids, how they meet out here in the playground.
Every day?
Yeah, every day, physical activity. Okay, so they started that in 2009. Their scores went up in 2010 that much by taking about 20 minutes at the beginning of instruction. This is instruction time away in the morning. And the principal said, now when she goes into the classroom, the kids are on task sooner than when the kids started in the classroom to begin with. Okay, because of this. And so
Wasn't
I
that
said,
run by a volunteer? Or was that
it was run by a parent volunteer, correctly. And so the principal brought me out and was real proud and said, see what we're doing. I said, it's great. I love physical activity. It's a great way to start the day. It gets the kids moving. But I said it's not physical education because that's not how you teach math or anything else. Right? There's not deliberate instruction going on and assessment of that instruction to see if there's measured learning. Okay? So in 2010, they implemented a PE teacher. A parent actually got a credential in physical education, went back to school, very dynamic person, all right? Started to teach the classroom teachers at the same time the physical education. So she did the morning program, and then during the day, they would take them out for physical education.
Was she paid by the district?
She actually became paid by the, she started out paid by the parents, then they got the P-tip grant, she was talking about.
Yeah.
And so she was paid by that, and now still is. So their scores went up again, 11 points. And so the principal's going, man, there's something to this. And now the teachers are all buying in. And so they're doing it. And so we said, what else can we do? And so we did in-class activities, what we call brain breaks, that we're going to do right now. All right, a brain break to get the kids active inside the classroom. Remember I talked about every 20 minutes? Well, you can't take them out for physical education every 20 minutes. All right, so in the classroom we can do activities, all right? So I want everybody to stand up. Okay. Oh yeah.
I told her you were going to make us do push-ups.
All right, so you're going to take your two index fingers and point them at each other. Okay, I'm going to teach you an incompatible tap. You're not used to doing this. Okay, take your left hand and circle it towards you. Okay. Breathe, right? That's compatible. Now you're going to take your right hand and circle it the opposite way without stopping. Opposite. Opposite.
Is that not opposite? Wow.
All right, and then reverse it. Opposite. Opposite. All right, and reverse it. All right? Many of you are doing very good going the same way. So you stop and take one hand, look at where it's going, and then the other hand's got to go the opposite direction. Very hard to do.
There you go, Ginger.
Okay? So little things like that we can do in class for the kids, all right? Another one, is you're going to take your left hand and grab your right earlobe. Take your right hand and grab your left nose. Just check, all right? And as quickly as you can, you're going to uncross and switch places. All right? Just standing up, your brain functions 17% higher than when you're sitting. Now, a lot of executives are putting in, they call the executive boardroom. They have treadmills under their desk and they're walking as they're on the phone, right? Well, 2 miles an hour, slow, but their desk is elevated, and so they're stimulating their brain. Plus, they're burning calories. Okay. Okay. It's when I say go, stand back to back with the partner. Go. Okay. Back to back is a grouping strategy, all right? That it's a good way to group kids. I teach classroom teachers how to do it because you're less likely to talk to each other, all right? That's what. Now, what you're going to do is move out here into this open space. Okay. And you can turn around and face your partner. And how many of you know the game of rock, paper, scissors? Anybody not know it? And I have to explain it. All right. So it's 1, 2, and you throw either a rock, paper, or scissors, correct? All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do it, but we're going to do it with math. All right. And we'll use just addition. All right. 5. All right. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And so you go 1, 2, throw, and whoever adds up both hands first and gets it correct is the winner. Right? So this would be 4. If I said 4 before my partner, I win. All right? So go ahead and try that.
4, 2, 3, 8, 7.
That's just a problem. If I had scissors, I got it. Right? If you don't both get this, we're even.
Maybe we need to go out. Yeah, there we go.
Another problem solving.
What? Oh!
But to decide which one's a winner and which one's not. Okay? Got it. All right. So now,
That's a good one. That's a good one.
okay.
You're an expert or something.
At what?
You're an expert.
At this?
That's why it's here.
No, I was good at this. I exercise a lot. All right. So now, all this is, we're adding some math, practicing some math as we play a fun game. So this is called partner tag. Right? You have to walk. There's no running. Okay? So when we do this, right, and whoever gets the answer, if it's 4, and I say 4, I win. I get to go free, and my partner is going to do 4 jumping jacks, adult style. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you don't come off the ground. You don't have to. Right? And then they can go try and tag that person. Okay? Got the idea? So it's just tag between yourselves. Just
So
you
the
and
winner goes finds another partner?
no.
No.
It's, you guys will always be partners.
Okay.
Right?
I'm just running from her.
If you're running, walking quickly from her, she is going to try and, after her jumping jacks, come over and try and tag you. Okay? So it's just a 2-person tag.
Gotcha.
All right? I like to start this way because kids, when they're friends, the tagging is much nicer, the game's much nicer. As opposed to the large tag, eventually we go in. So we're building social skills. Going a little bit up. Right? Just individuals.
Really, I would thought they would be nice for someone who didn't know.
Well, what happens is the person that is the good mover usually, tags, and the person that's not the good mover gets tagged. Getting tagged on being out. Right? In this, nobody ever gets out. Right? Which is another thing that we try to confess. So when you, let's say you win and you get to move away, right? You get to go, and then she's going to tag you. When she tags you, you turn around and face each other, and you do the fingers again. Okay? And so the game starts over. So it's all continuously moving and learning. Right? You got the idea? We're going to walk. Okay? You got the idea? All right? Now, the other thing is you are going to see that everybody else is moving through the open space at the same time. So you have to use your brain to look over the other. All right? All right. Ready? Go.
Jumping jacks.
4. Yeah.
5.
I do.
right? And are you more prepared to learn now? Just from that little movement and pay attention. So have a seat.
Quick question.
Yes.
I know our teachers teach PE by, like I know that third grade, at least one of the teachers, they have the kids run laps and they're out there and doing that sort of thing. And I think there's jump roping and that sort of thing. But these little brain breaks, are they learning those to do in the classroom? If you're saying
If they
that.
come to our trainings or if they're involved in one of our grants, we have a grant that your school can apply for. We actually have several grants that your school can apply for.
Where would I find information on that? Or should I loop back
Email
with
me.
you? Okay.
All right, email me. We got a grant from the Center for Disease Control. It's over 5 years. We're starting our third year of it. And we take 2 teachers from your school, 2 classroom teachers, and we train them for a week up in Ojai on all of these instructional strategies. We give them curriculum, we give them equipment, and then they come back and with our help, diffuse that to the rest of the classroom teachers.
And then is it mandatory for them to do it?
It's already mandatory.
Oh, it is?
It's state law.
Oh.
State law
What is the
says that
state law?
state law says there must be 200 minutes each 10 school days of physical education instruction. So physical education instruction is credentialed teacher delivering the lesson and evaluating the students on their improvement, okay? So that's what the state law says. Over the years, California used to be the model. Over the years, as they dump more and more stuff on, they've cut back from the teacher training. I don't blame the teachers, the classroom teachers, because now to get a credential in elementary school, it used to be where you had to at least complete a physical education for children's class before you graduated. Now you can graduate without it and you have 5 years to complete it. So they're coming out very untrained. So I don't get upset with them because Nike gave me a bunch of money, $3.5 million, to study this with our teachers 8 years ago. And the classroom teachers were saying, we'll teach it, we just don't have a clue on how to teach physical education. We walk out there and there's no walls. And we're afraid the kids are just going to scatter and never come back. And so we had to teach them how to do that. And she said, or not she, they, there's over 100 teachers, said the curriculum can't be above our content knowledge. You know, a regular physical education curriculum in middle school and high school is much more detailed. It takes a lot of learning. That's what they do. But the classroom teacher wants 5 minutes to look at something, go out and do it. And so they created it, and we have a curriculum specifically designed that we give them that does just that. And we give them the equipment. So those are the 3 big questions, so we've answered that. So we have this community transformation grant that you guys can apply for and get your teachers trained, get this equipment, and then we start moving. And that's what this is about, and that's why we have it for 5 years. We also have the PTIP grant, Physical Education Teacher Incentive Program, where our school board, the state actually put money, and LAUSD got most $2 million to hire credentialed physical education teachers for the elementary schools. So they go to the school for 1 day a week. They do model lessons every week throughout the year with the classroom teacher right there by their side. So I'm getting embedded professional development right there. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to go on a weekend. I'm getting paid to do it, the regular salary. And so we slowly transition, and the classroom teacher takes those kids out the rest of the week. So it helps that classroom teacher. So that's what we need to do. Yes?
Just out of curiosity, being that you said it was state law, the physical education requirements, doesn't that apply to private schools as well?
No, only public money. Only public schools. Only public schools. Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Another question, if, we'll apply for the grants, obviously, but we've not had tons of luck with grant writing. So how much would that actually cost to send 2 teachers for that week-long training? Do you know off the top of your head?
It's about $1,000
A piece or total?
a piece.
Okay.
And it includes 3 follow-up days
Okay.
in that $1,000.
That's $2,000
Up,
to spend.
up there, the cost is actually $750 to house them and feed them and do all of our instruction.
Okay.
Right? And then we do 3 follow-up days to help, because it's better professional development
Right.
when you follow up. So we problem solve along the way, and we do that for 2 years.
For 2 years. So those 3 days would be across those 2 years afterwards?
No, for 1
Oh.
year, and then we do what's called technical assistance. Those teachers are in our database, and we constantly are in communication to see how things are going and moving.
And so the expectation is they would go, they would bring it back to their colleagues and, you know, kind of like the
Yes, and
trickle out.
Yeah, they have to do 3 professional developments throughout the year, and then actually they do 4 follow-ups with us, where we help and continue their growth,
Okay.
problem solving. Yes?
And just, if we could find 2 teachers that wanted to do it, could a parent do it?
No. It's got to be a credentialed teacher. Yeah. We've had some administrators, but it's got to be a credentialed teacher. Yeah. Yes?
You know, I mean, I buy into all of this, and there's like this new breakfast classroom that's been rolling out, it's already to middle school, that's coming here, and I'm beyond against it. Like, I mean, I see the benefits of walking to school, or just your little exercises, and I walk other kids to school, because the parents want them to have that exercise to get their brains going in the morning. And I just think, you know, how is LA Unified making it so hard for us to get grants, to get PE, which should be mandatory, it should be public money. I don't even understand why we are paying, or we have to go through this, and yet they can have up to 22 or 30 minutes. Like, is there a way to figure out how to integrate this into that breakfast in the classroom time that's being carved out? Because they're not doing anything.
Those are school site decisions, because every school site's different. And I understand the breakfast here, I'm on that big task force because of the physical activity that's also associated, because in middle school it's during a class of physical education. How are they going to eat and not throw up and do all these things? So
And it's just tremendously wasteful as well. I mean, no one's eating it. So I'm wondering if there's a way to
But
figure out how
those
to
are school site decisions.
School site council was starting to talk about that and is
Yeah.
taking action to
No,
make it.
I understand, but I'm just saying, is there a way to like get the training, like these types of exercises in? Because the majority of students, whether we want the program or not, is coming.
Yeah,
People aren't-
the breakfast in the classroom, it's supposed to be less than 20 minutes, but 20 minutes seems to be the average. There is a lot of waste, but it's coming. The superintendent wants it,
Well, no,
and
I
it brings
know
in
that.
money for the cafeteria workers. It's a huge thing there, but I really don't want to talk about it.
Well, I was just wondering if there was any way to bring these type of exercises in.
The
because
way-
majority of people are not even.
Yeah, we can't bring it into that breakfast in the classroom time because there's not enough time there. But what is going on is every school site has to have now, and this is from all those Williams complaints that were filed, they have to have when every classroom teacher is going out for physical education. So when you look at your teachers, they have a syllabus like on the wall of the time of when they're doing reading, when they're doing math, when they're doing social studies, all those things. Physical education has to be on there by itself because of the legal mandate.
Every day?
No, that's why they give flexibility. What we would like to see is every day. That's our recommendation in the bulletin that we've written. But usually it's like a half hour, 4 times a week. There's all different kinds of things that we like to see at least 3 days. I do.
For a minimum of how long?
It's 5 at home.
It depends from, ideally, we like to see 30 minutes, but if they're going just 3 days, then we have to see more. We would like to see 30 minutes every day. That's our recommendation.
So in the middle school it's every day, but here it's 1 day a week that we have that the parents paid for, and then
But
some
that's
teachers.
not physical education.
Oh, well
That's
then
what
they
I
don't
want
have it
the
at all
big thing,
here.
because
Then
I
we don't
have to
have it at all.
educate the district.
But the teachers take them
Administrators,
outside.
everybody,
Also not physical.
they call it psychomotor and things like that, but it's actually physical activity, and that's the thing that I've had to teach everybody in the district, parents. Physical education is actually deliberate learning going on. So I want you to learn how to do the overhand throw. Okay, yes,
So the 200 minutes for every 10 days must be by a credentialed teacher.
yes.
And that is the law. And so if you're breaking the law, what is the ramifications of that?
The ramification is that we have to change. They're not going to, they know, like we've been doing this now.
Would that
for-
be the grounds then for the Williams complaint?
Yes.
And that you can just file that as
You can
the
do it
parent.
anonymously, yeah.
So a lot of the women
Scramble
in
your
this,
voice.
in this, yeah, can you kill that for just a second? A lot of the women in this room know my hair's lit on fire about our commonplace benching practice. If a child misses on a daily test a question, they get benched at recess. If they forget their homework, they get benched at recess.
That's a contraindicated practice. That means they should not do that. Physical activity should not be used as punishment.
I
So
completely
either
agree.
we should not make them run laps, and we should not bench them because they are not behaving.
But wouldn't the data show that that would be running would actually be a better option because that child would be
Yes.
better prepared to learn, have burned off the energy.
My idea is that they should.
And their brain would be more red.
Because at least
Yes.
they're moving and
So-
they're helping the school. It's not
Is there anything, because I,
Okay?
hearing this, like my
Well,
anxiety was like.
So your decision makers, all right, your school site council, I'll be happy to come and speak to them,
Okay.
all right, about those things. It's actually in our elementary bulletin. It's in the wellness policy that they exercise is not used as punishment. It's in our appropriate practices, all of those things. And withholding is not good also. Okay? So those are all good practices, yes.
So when and how did we lose PE?
Um,
We didn't have it by the time I started.
Yeah, long time ago, there were actually credentialed teachers that took kids out, and the classroom teachers did a much better job of taking them out because they didn't have the crunch for time. But over the last 30 years, more and more things have been placed on the elementary schools that they've added in that they have to learn, the school districts have to learn. And so that time crunch for minutes becomes very stressful for the classroom teacher. You know, I know over the last 2 years, we looked at all those elementary minutes because that we were hearing that from the elementary classroom teachers that there's just not enough time in this school day to do every mandate that the school board's asking them. And it came out to about 8 hours a day you would have to have the kids to do everything. So they've combined some of them so that now there's just enough time to do everything. And we started from the legal mandate of the elementary physical education is taught by the classroom teacher. That has to be 200 minutes each 10 school days. So that's over a slow process. And the brain research wasn't. Yes, we were. Smart parents here.
We're small in
Very
numbers,
good
but we're pretty
questions.
fierce.
But yes, and that's what. But we really didn't know it because like any subject, if you're not monitoring it, how do we know? And so the state by law has to do what they call now is a federal program monitoring. When I started, it was called the California Compliance Review, CCR, and then it was a CPM, coordinated program, categorical program monitoring. Now it's a federal program monitoring. So it includes federal and state laws. Because 15 years ago, the state saw the obesity epidemic coming. And I'm getting to some other slides here that are the costs, huge costs. At that time, it was about $20 billion of obesity-related diseases that it was costing the state. And so they went to those experts that I talked about again, the Surgeon General, National Institute of Health, American Heart Association, American Medical Association, and they said the best thing to combat obesity is physical education in elementary school, all the way up through 12th grade. So California went, we were the first state to ever do that. We were the first state to have a law 1949 that said physical education for 200 minutes each 10 school days, 400 minutes in the middle and high school. And they went, great. And then they said, wait, how do we really know they're doing it? Because they weren't monitoring it. So they started monitoring it about 10 years ago. And they went, oh, nobody's doing it. All right, it was less than 10% of the schools were doing it. So that monitoring process started every year with LA Unified. Actually, we didn't do it the first year. The second year they got us, and it showed that we were deficient. And so now we've been trying to correct all those things. But remember, LA Unified is like steering the Titanic, all right? It moves very slowly. So we have been made huge gains over time.
Okay, but it's my understanding that you're saying in order to get what we need to apply for grants, which I don't understand.
Well,
Or file a Williams complaint.
We like you to speak as parents to your school site council about the importance of this, and then figure out with your principal and teachers, how can we do this? What training do we need? You can get the grant that I'm talking about that will train the 2 teachers. I told them about a grant, the Community Transformation Grant, that I'll send you to get 2 teachers trained through the summer. All right?
I think we should just spend the money and do it. I mean, why
That's
go through
great,
the process?
but I guarantee you can get the grant right now.
Oh, okay.
All right?
I just have a quick question.
If
got
you
that on
can
film,
get
you
2
know.
teachers, if you have 2 teachers that you can think of that are kind of physically educated minded, either they were athletes or are willing to give up a week to go to Ojai, and get fed and have fun and learn and plus you get equipment and curriculum, all right?
So I just have a question, just so I understand this. So it's mandated by the state, but what we're doing here is not like physical education instruction.
Correct.
They're getting out and moving.
Yes, it's
because
physical activity.
they get the 1 day of PE plus a lot of the teachers do bring them out at the end of the day and let them play.
Yes.
So they are moving.
Excuse me. All
Yeah.
teachers.
Some.
Right.
But
Now,
we are not getting
what
what
you
we're-
said there was they bring them out and let them play. Play is important. Unstructured play is what we call that. That's recess. Physical education is not a glorified recess. It's actual instruction, all right? And you see, if you're part of that grant, then I will be coming much more often and showing the teachers how to do the instruction and get it in fun ways, child-centered ways, elementary children type ways, like we just did that little activity. It's fun, you're not thinking about physical activity, we're disguising the fitness and moving, but they're getting warmed up. That's what we deserve, okay?
Is
Yes.
there a way, question basically, Mr. Kearney, to have the teachers? Because Mr. Eric's
I
coming
can-
this evening. This is so.
I will come and do a professional development, that's what I do. I do professional development, yeah, if you get me on your list.
All righty then.
Yeah,
How about next
even
Tuesday?
if you wanted to announce tonight, if
He's
anyone
coming
was
tonight
interested.
to
I
be
can
here.
announce it, and then I think more effectively would be to bring Mr. Fenwick here
Yes.
for an actual PPD.
I just did one on Saturn Elementary School. That was one of our grant schools, so they bring me in as part of the agreement.
So even though this is mandated, we have to figure out a way to do it.
Like anything,
We're not
easy to
gonna get
say.
it. We're just not gonna get
it's
it.
easy to say, my goal is to lose weight, but if you don't have a good plan of how to do it, and again, it's not gonna change overnight, we're gonna do it a little bit so it's successful. And so when we do the, first thing we started with is a schedule, making sure that they have a schedule of when they're going out and that it's on their wall. When I go to do the monitoring with the state, they come in to do the federal program, I go there and we do it with the classes, with the schools. And the first thing we do is we go to every classroom and check to see that their schedule says physical education.
Is there like a
30 minutes.
definition in terms of, it's not just sitting down in the classroom talking about physical activity, correct?
No, physical education has to be, the lesson is developed by the teacher, so they can pull it out of our SPARK curriculum, delivered by the teacher, and there has to be assessed by the teacher. So there's deliberate things that we look for. So we look that they have something specifically they want the kids to learn. the overhand throw, right?
Okay, so it has to be a physical thing. They have to.
It can be physical or cognitive, all right? There's standards in physical and cognitive, it's about half, okay? Yeah. But all of physical education, one school that I went to, because of a parent complaint, to do professional development like we were talking about, was classroom teacher said, can we do all the physical education instruction inside the classroom? I said, no, there's no way. All right, but that was one of those teachers non-moving that didn't want to do it, all right? So we're a little bit over time, all right? So let me go quickly through some of these slides. This is just to show you this. This was a study done in a high school, Naperville, Illinois, where they started seeing this research and they said, okay, let's take our lower performing kids in math or whatever subject they are, math or reading, and do learning readiness physical education right before their most difficult class. And they actually scheduled a small group of about 4 classes where physical education, learning readiness PE was right before their reading class or their English class. And so the red is the increase in most students, and the blue is the kids that didn't have the learning readiness PE. So they got a big gain in learning. It was about 17% of the group percentage-wise. So in 2006, they did it again, and they got the same type of learning. Thank you. And so so that was in the morning. They did it in the morning, they did their physical activity, they did their worst class right after it, and they got that. And so they said, all right, but to do this school-wide, we can't do every child in the morning and right after. So they said, let's look at in the afternoon. So they did their hardest class, the very last class of the day. But they did learning readiness PE before it in 2007, and they got huge increases. So it's not the time of the day, because I know when we started doing this, there was open court. In open court, they set out in elementary, and I think they still have that philosophy, right in the morning, you have to do it in the morning, these first 2 to 4 hours. But we're showing that it's the physical activity that is the key. So they did it in the afternoon, worst class, still got huge gains in learning. And then they just, the next 2 years, expanded it more and more classes. So their whole school is scheduled with that learning readiness piece. So they've taken what I've been talking about, the neuro research, and saying, all right, we need to schedule these kids. They petitioned in 2007 to take that TIMS test, you know, that we do as a nation, I was talking about earlier, where we dropped to 15th and we used to be always 4th. It's China, Finland, and India that are now in the top 3 all the time, and Korea, top 4. And what they did is they took it as a district themselves, and they scored 2 and 4, 2 in math, 4 in English by themselves. So it's a huge...
This Naperville?
Yes, Naperville, Illinois. This is the same thing with their math data. They got the same increases by doing physical activity, physical education before, getting the kids moving. This is a middle school that did the same thing. They used to only do 50 minutes of physical education. And so over a month period of time, they started cutting out more of the academic, putting more physical activity in, and their API went from 635, 665, 689 to 716. So a huge...
Now, the only thing is, there were things that were happening concurrently. They
Yes.
were concentrating on their academic program, so that wasn't the one and only factor that led to the gain in the API score.
Right.
But
And
with-
that's what we
in the
talked
o-
about.
in
is
the
you're
Oberlin
preparing
study-
the brain to learn, and then the teachers teach right after it, and they get huge learning.
In the Overland jumps, had they done anything different besides
Nothing.
adding?
The principal did nothing different.
926 to 945 to 9.
Do I detect several people jonesing in here?
Yes.
These are the costs I talked about. Just let's look at the top one. 2006, the estimated cost in California for overweight, obesity, and physical inactivity is $41 billion. That's the one I talked about that got everything started. They started looking at it. $21 billion was overweight and obesity costs, like healthcare costs. And then 20 billion on productivity that we lost. I was talking to about your back. Like you were saying.
with the lower,
Yeah, all right. And that she feels better when she starts moving and stretching because we're designed to move. The biggest cost for productivity and lost productivity is low back problems. More people miss work because of that. The second one is neck, and the third is shoulder. Right? Because when we sit, it's very bad for the back. Right?
Sitting's the new smoking.
And gravity pulls on us, and so we start slouching like this. And then our brain says, keep your eyes up so we can see, and so it degenerates the disc of the neck. And then we slouch forward, so it compresses the shoulder joint, so we have more rotator cuff problems, right? So now you see kids, what are they doing? Sitting in the chairs playing. Get them up, straighten them up. All right, exercise and depression. So we're going to talk real quickly about this stuff. Improves impulse control, behavior, attention, nudginess. They have the round physio balls we got for one special ed school. The classroom wanted physio balls, so the kids sit on it and they bounce, right? And it has a calming effect for their brain so they can pay attention.
What do you think about the Wii?
About what? The Wii?
And exercise.
Oh, I love it. If you don't play it like my wife.
That is.
Plays a dance game. She sat in the chair with me. You know, at first our kids are, doing this, and my wife's doing this, and then she realized, oh, I can just do this. So that's why the Microsoft did the Kinect.
Yeah.
The Kinect, your body moves, so you have to do it. So physical activity, when integrated into the curriculum, takes up little time and it improves on-task behavior. This is bouts, 20 minutes versus 40 minutes. 20 minutes. This is on childhood depression scale. And the intervention, the control groups on the left, with no intervention with depression. With 20 minutes of exercise, the only intervention, no medication, they got less repeat depression. And with 40 minutes, they got even less. All right? This is on suspensions, a school that went from 1 day of physical activity to 5 days, including physical education. And their suspension rate dropped tremendously. This is on Zoloft. They took people completely off Zoloft and got better results with just exercise on relapse, whether they relapse or not. So medication alone had more relapse. And then the combination of medicine and exercise did a little bit better. But the exercise alone, and Dr. Rady explained to me that because it has the chemicals that are released from your body are designed for your body. When you take a pill, it gets some of those, but there's byproducts that are developed that your body doesn't like. And so it doesn't work as well as exercise itself because it's designed right for your body. But we have to be real. We can't pretend we're doing it. Right now, the physical activity, all right, we're pretending that we're doing it. All right, and I'm going to get to, this is where we talked about physical education, physical activity, the difference. Teaches skills. Physical education, we actually teach the skills, knowledge, and behaviors to be physically active the rest of life. When they go out and just play, many of the times the kids that are successful are the ones that are already skilled, that have the skills. The ones that we need to work with are the ones that don't have the skills, and they're the ones that move the least. This was a study that showed on the far right is the more skills you have, the lower your BMI in children. So a very high skill, that means they know how to throw, catch, strike, dance, tumble, swim. The more skills they have, the lower their BMI. Very simple, but they have to learn those skills. And physical education is one of those places. The higher the skill, the more physical activity. So the far right is very high moderate to vigorous physical activity, which is like a fast walker faster. And the more skills you have, the higher that was, which makes the BMI come down. It eliminates about 80% of the negative effects. Physical activity in children having perceived physical competence is the number one thing that determines whether that child is going to be a mover or not. Perceived. Remember when I said when we don't teach them the competency motivational theory? If I'm not good at throwing and catching, then I'm not going to go out and play kickball and jump rope if I can't jump rope. I'm not going to play those games because my perceived physical competence is very low. In the teens skill in physical activity. So as the teens, the number one contributor was if I was skilled, then I was going to be physically active as an adult. So it's important, those first 10 years, the most important years for those children to develop that knowledge, behaviors, and attitudes, and the skills to be movers. This is the effects of physical education. The green is the kids that had PE in school. And the black is no PE. And whether they participated when they're from 18 to 35 in team sports, outdoor activities, cycling. So the kids that have physical education in school, much more physically active the rest of their lives. That was this is adolescence, which got the same effect on frequency. The more frequent the times they took the kids out in physical education, the more physically active they were the rest of their lives in all those different things. And this is adolescence, the same thing. The more frequent, so this comes back to that competency motivation. If I learn those skills, and I'm learning them in physical education and not just playing games, which are good, don't get me wrong, that's good. But, and this is just the more minutes, the lower the obesity in girls. This is a bunch of studies that were looked at. 18 studies in 2003 on the effects of exercise on cognitive function in older adults concluded that exercise programs involve both aerobic exercise and strength training produce better results in cognitive abilities. So they looked at a whole bunch of studies and saw the same things. But we want to make it part of our life, all right? You don't just have to have a gymnasium. These people are riding the escalator up to work. That's like driving around the shopping mall to find the closest parking spot you could. My wife will drive forever. I just park at the first one I see and just walk. This dog is waiting, right? They're waiting, that dog's waiting to go out for a walk. So we have to take care of ourselves also. But as teachers and parents, this is what, remember how we showed the evolution of man? We developed all this computer, and now the kids don't even know what a ball is because it's all done on the computer. And finally, students who participate in school physical education programs did not experience a harmful effect on their standardized test scores, though less time was available from other subject areas. Many studies have shown this. Not one study did they find where quality physical education was taught did test scores go down. They either maintained or went up. And you saw the Norwood study that we did, taking time away, and we saw the Overland results, right? So, a sound body, we want a sound mind, they go together. Thomas Jefferson said, in order to learn to read, you must be physically fit. And to be physically fit, you must be able to read. They go hand in hand, right? So, my contact information, you need to get a hold of me for the grants. We'll do that. And that's my conclusion. You all the new research now, actually, brain cells are growing and rejuvenating. So it's all the stuff that is the latest research that's come out, and it's really fascinating to see that connection and what's happening in the United States with our children in learning, comparing it to the rest of the world. My wife grew up in Finland. I met her there when I was working and doing teaching over there. And their system, most of the kids either ride a bike or snow ski to school, right? So they get their physical activity then, and it's very important. All the other countries have movement built in. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori, for referring me to bring the chat over here. I think it was very beneficial. And any questions